With the new Rites of the Nine version of Prophecy released, we have now come to the end of the content for Rites of the Nine, as they are not adding any new additional content in the coming weeks. So I figured the best time to do this would be now, where we sit down and talk about whether Rites of the Nine was good or not, hint hint it wasn't, and what they should do in the future to improve these types of events. So as you can tell, I believe Rites of the Nine was a rather disappointing event, and I believe it could have been great if Bungie had put a little bit more time and effort into it instead of just throwing a few mechanical changes into the dungeons, or in the case of Ghost of the Deep, throwing one change in and calling it a day. So why should you play Rites of the Nine, realistically, from a player's perspective? Well, first off, there are the guns. However, that's also kind of the issue with this event. Out of the dungeon weapons that they have reintroduced, only about 3 of them are actually worth your time. There's 4 weapons per dungeon, and only about 3 of them you should be worth getting. As far as I can see, most of the Prophecy weapons aren't worth getting. You might only want the shotgun from Prophecy. From Ghost of the Deep, you honestly don't want anything besides the SMG, maybe the glaive and the rocket. And from Spyro the Watcher, I honestly can't tell you anything that you'd want. There's better LMGs, there's better scout rifles, and with the new expansion coming, I am sure that there's going to be better new guns coming. As well as that, Rites of the Nine honestly is just not interesting. They haven't done anything with the dungeons to make them fun or worth your time or want me to replay them constantly. For example, when we had Into the Light with the last update of last year before the final shape, I wanted to rerun the Pantheon activity because I found the encounters fun, the changes were good, and honestly the weapons were worth it, as well as at the end of the reward you could get a raid weapon. This time around, you don't have any of that. You have dungeon weapons that are mediocre at best, apart from one in Navigator, which is worth your time. Additionally, there's no real skill factor to the hard mode of Rites of the Nine Pantheon, and this is an issue that I have with Destiny in its entirety. As of right now, and I know this is changing in Edge of Fate, but as of right now, difficulty in Destiny is completely artificial and boils down to don't get hit by the bullet because it will one-shot you and that's all Bungie have to offer. But additionally, with the Pantheon changes, all of the encounters were benefited by the changes. Rolk having a second ghostly figure following you around and kicking you made it so you had to keep moving and be aware of your surroundings. They fixed the Riven cheese, and to this day I will stand by this opinion. Riven should be fixed, and the legitimate way to do Riven is one of the best raid encounters ever made, and people just refuse to actually participate because they can't be bothered. It is as simple as that, in my opinion. And it goes for the same with the Nezarec encounter. Even though I personally do not like fighting Nezarec, the change that they made to his encounter, making it so you cannot stand on the plates for damage, was great. Did we find another cheese spot during that time? Yes. But at least they tried. With the dungeons, it does not seem like they tried besides putting on a few timers. So let's quickly discuss the changes they made and how disappointing they realistically are. First things first, I actually want to praise Bungie for the changes in Spyro the Watcher. The first encounter hasn't changed significantly, it just adds a boss on the Ultimator mode, which is great, and it also gave it a loot drop, also great. The second and third encounters also have great changes in the symbols. It makes it so you have to pay attention. These were great changes. Ghost of the Deep, on the other hand, is an absolute shit show and should be removed from the game and put in the DCV with all the other content that's in there. The only positive change that was made to Ghost of the Deep was the fact that they made the first encounter 3 rounds instead of 4. and it goes quicker, so you can get out of the goddamn dungeon faster. If you can't tell, I don't like Ghost of the Deep. Additionally, with Ghost of the Deep, they didn't change anything else. That's quite literally it. As far as I know, there are no other changes in Ghost of the Deep. They didn't do anything to the encounters. Which massively disappointed that they only made one thing shorter, which is great because who the fuck wants to play Ghost of the Deep realistically? Now, moving on to Prophecy. Prophecy is kind of in the middle. I don't mind the dungeon in its normal form as much, but the only notable changes that they made were a dark blade following you around during the cube puzzle, and then when you go outside, or during the wasteland section, you have to kill a specific minotaur, as well as Rainbow Road now having checkpoints, meaning you have to go through it normally. These are all mediocre changes. None of them are really bad, but none of them are great. They could have done so much more with Prophecy and Ghost of the Deep, but they chose not to for what I can assume is laziness. Now, my other big gripe with the entire Rites of the Nine event is the Ultimatum challenge. For Into the Light, you had to complete the encounter within a specific amount of time to get a specific amount of points. You could also do this by killing everything faster, and there were multiple ways to improve your scores to get the high scores. In the Ultimatum modes, your goal is to just not die. And as we discussed before, Bungie's version of don't die is I will one-shot you, so just hide in a corner. And as I'm sure we're all going to agree, it just isn't fun to just be one-shot by enemies. Bungie need to do something about the artificial difficulty that they employ in higher-end content, and I know they are doing this in The Edge of Fate, so we'll discuss that when the video comes around. But it does not change the fact that within this, when one person dies on Ultimatum, it's essentially a wipe and you have to restart. This to me is just the most unfun thing. Yes, you might see it as skillful to just not die, but when I'm getting one-tapped by a fucking thrall from halfway across the map, I don't agree. I also want to bring up the fact that there is no unique armor rewards like there was in Into the Light. And in saying this, they had the perfect opportunity. They have the flawless ornaments from the Trials of the Nine that they could have reintroduced that look slightly different. So you can't say, oh, I have the flawless armor set. It's like, no, you don't. You have the Rites of the Nine version. That's what they should have done. They should have introduced ornaments for completing the challenges. There are 2 challenges per dungeon. That's 6 challenges. You could have 5 of those reward the armor pieces or the ornaments, and then 1 introduce the like an emblem or something along those lines, or maybe a unique shader. Bungie could have done this, instead they chose not to for whatever reason. It is the same way that we never get new weapon skins, even though they have hundreds of them that they are sitting on from year 1. Overall, Rites of the Nine is a gigantic letdown for what's meant to keep us occupied until The Edge of Fate. The Edge of Fate looks great. This looks shit. So I really hope next year when we get our pre-expansion event, whatever it may be, maybe it be a new Pantheon mode, maybe it be a return of Rites of the Nine. I really, really hope Bungie put a lot more thought into it and a lot more thought into the replayability and what players actually want from these events. Anyway, that's been my rant about Rites of the Nine. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear it, and I try to reply to all my comments as fast as I can. I will see you on the next one, and also thank you for 100 subscribers. I know it's not a big milestone, but hey, we gotta celebrate the little numbers and the big numbers. Also, if you made it this far into the video, comment Squeaky Pants for an Edge of Fate Deluxe Edition giveaway. I will send you the code.